Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Illegal Mist, and today we're going to talk about the mechanics for Spider 10 Hard so that you can build a team specific for your account. Huge shout out to Tyrauku for making a couple videos on Spider 10. While I wasn't able to recreate the exact teams that he had, I was able to utilize some other aspects from his videos to make my teams, and I wanted to tell you guys the thought process that I had when making the team. If you haven't already, make sure you go over there and subscribe, but let's be realistic. If you're watching my videos, you probably already know about him and you're already subscribed. So for my account specifically, I'm using Cardiel and Kymar. Realistically, I know most people are going to see this and probably stop watching, but they fulfill specific roles for my team that I'd be able to fulfill with other champions or different types of gear. What I mean by that is this team is utilizing Cardiel's ally speed in all battles, so I would just need to build my champs slightly faster. Additionally, Cardiel gives me a cleanse and a block debuffs, which I could sub out if I either built my nukers faster or if I put one in an immunity set so they don't get slept. Kymar can get subbed out for Painkeeper and Renegade, and all I would need to do is make sure that the roles that Cardiel is fulfilling for this team are being met with other requirements. Cardiel comes in with the ally attack that increases my crit rate. One of my Husks has 100% crit rate, but the other one doesn't because I use him in Brutal Hydra with my Cardiel that gives him the increased crit rate. So when I built this team, I realized I don't want to rebuild my Husk, so instead, I can bring in my Cardiel, who fulfills the role of increasing the crit rate to 100%. For this team, I'm also getting Lydia, who gives me the decreased defense and weaken, as well as the strengthen, which helps my team stay alive, and the speed increase so that my champions can be built with less speed. So for a typical team for Spider 10 Hard, where you're not utilizing Hex, the first goal is make sure that we have one champion go before our AoE decreased defense champion. That way, we'll have all 10 Spiderlings out, and they'll all receive AoE decreased defense and weaken. You can bypass this step if your nukers are strong enough to kill enemies without AoE decreased defense and weaken. The next step is, we want to make sure that we nuke all 10 Spiderlings with 2 AoE max HP champions. The reason we need AoE max HP champions is because when we kill 10 Spiderlings, we do 30% damage to the boss's health, but with the enemy max HP nukers, we deal an additional 10% damage to the boss. Nukers like my Baron won't work because they won't do 10% of the boss's HP, even if they do kill all of the Spiderlings. After our AoE enemy max HP nukers go, we want to make sure that we have the Spider go before any of our other champions. The reason we do that is so that way no Spiderlings spawn, the boss doesn't deal additional damage, as well as the boss won't heal itself. You can bypass that step if you're able to survive the hit from the boss, and you're able to make sure that you can kill the boss on the next round. After the boss's turn, we need to make sure that none of our champions are slept, or if the champions do get slept, we want to make sure that we can cleanse that sleep. Once we have the Spider go, all of our champions are awake, we want to make sure that we reset our skills for our max HP damage dealers, as well as our champion that places AoE decreased defense / weaken. The next step, after we make sure all of our skills are reset, is that we want to make sure we spawn enough Spiderlings. As you can see from the runs that I did, you don't need to spawn all 10 Spiderlings if you deal enough damage to the boss. Once we spawn as many Spiderlings as we can, we have our AoE decreased defense and weaken go, we have our enemy max HP nukers go, and the boss will be dead. If we're able to make sure that we meet all of those requirements, we'll be able to take down the boss with any champions that we have. Like I said, I have Kymar and Cardiel in this team, but it's not the team that I want. It's the team that let me complete this at 100% effectiveness without building or booking or doing anything else in my account. I only had to spend like $1 million silver, and I spent $1 million silver because none of my freaking speed glyphs landed more than 1 speed. We can go in and watch the team, and then we can talk about why my team was built specifically for my account, as well as what you can do for your account. So there you have it. As you can see, my Cardiel is kind of an MVP for this team, but like I said, you don't need Cardiel in the team, and you don't need Kymar. Go watch Tyrauku's video if you want to see a team that uses Painkeeper and Renegade, and it's very consistent. He uses Elva in that team so that he gets, again, that 19% speed increase in all battles, but another champion that would work fantastically for that role is a Duchess. I would have preferred Duchess in my team, but like I said, one of my Husks doesn't have 100% crit rate, so in order to meet that, I use Cardiel. If I use Duchess, she would place the block debuffs on my Husk, so that way he wouldn't get the sleep from the Spider when he takes his turn. To understand the mechanics of it, you need to make sure that you do the right thing for your account. The only thing that I invested in for this team was a couple speed glyphs to get my Husks up to the correct speeds. We can go in and we can look at the builds for my champions, and then we can talk about specifically why I have them in the specific turn orders. For my Cardiel, he's built for my clan boss team, which requires him to be at 265 speed. I have him built with a lot of damage, but you certainly don't need it. He's fully booked out, but for this team, you wouldn't need him booked as it only decreases the cooldowns. For his masteries, he's built for clan boss and he has typical clan boss masteries. For my Kymar, he's built specifically for PvP, So he's very fast at 312 speed, and you want to make sure that you have at least one of your champions faster than your decreased defense champion. That way you'll have one champion go so that the additional spiderlings come out, and when you place your decreased defense and weaken from Lydia, she'll have as many spiderlings out as possible. He's built with 312 speed and high accuracy, but realistically all you need him to do is be faster than your nukers. My Kaimar's fully booked, but you wouldn't need to book out your Kaimar, or if you use Painkeeper and Renegade, you wouldn't need to book them out either. These are his masteries in case you're curious. For my husks, I built them a while ago, specifically for Hydra. The first husk has 65k HP, 1.9k defense, 230 speed, 100% crit rate, and 234 crit damage. He's fully booked out, but you don't need to book him out if you have Kaimar. If you don't have Kaimar, I think you need to make sure that he gets this book because Painkeeper and Renegade won't get him down all the way. My husks are fully booked, and this one has Cruelty, but I don't believe you need Cruelty to make sure that you nuke, as long as you have enough damage. For this husk, I have War Master. For my second husk, this is the one that I said I don't have 100% crit rate. But with Cardiel's ally attack ability that gives him increased crit rate, I'm able to meet that 100% threshold for the crit rate. For husk speed, we have 228 as it's the minimum requirement for when we have a champion that gives us 19% speed aura. Again, we're fully booked out, and we go down the War Master tree. The War Masters are nice to have, but they're not needed as our champion should be able to do 100% damage to the spider. So for my team specifically, I'm able to sub out Cardiel if I don't want him. All I need to do is put in a champion like Farrakhan the Fat so that my husk gets 100% crit rate. I'll also need to go in and make sure that my speeds for my husks is high enough where they're able to get a turn before the big spider goes. Like I said, all you need to do is make sure you meet those requirements that I just stated, and your team will work. This team that I built right here would be perfect for this as long as I meet those requirements. This team doesn't work for my account because of the builds that the champions are in. I use Royal Guard in my Fire Knight 25 team, my Dark Fae team, and my normal or hard Hydra team. He's already used for 3 places, and I don't want to try and rebuild him for a 4th place when I have champions that fit that role. My Renegade right now is used to help showcase more free-to-play teams, so she could get rebuilt if I needed to, but I don't need her rebuilt because there's other champions that would need a rebuild as well. My Painkeeper is built for my Iron Twins 15 team, so I don't want to rebuild her just for Spider. My Ghostborn is built perfectly for this team, but the issue I have when I try and slot him in for my Lydia is that my husks don't do enough damage because the enemy doesn't have weaken. So I would need to rebuild both of my husks to make sure that they do enough damage, and like I said, I want to save my resources for other areas of the game. My husk is built perfectly for this team, except for the fact that he's not in immunity and he's not fast enough to go before the boss. Because my Cardiel is in the other team, he lets my husk meet the requirement for speed, but then he would still get hit by the spider and he would get slept. So he doesn't work in this team. If you want to build a team like this, go make sure you watch Tyrauku's video, as I think he uses these exact champions. Like I said, a team like this is much more budget friendly, but it doesn't work for my account because the champions are being used all over the place. So just to recap, my Royal Guard is used in Dark Fae, Hydra, and my old Fire Knight 25 team. Painkeeper is used in Iron Twins 15, and Husk is used in my Hydra teams as well. So if I wanted to build this team, I would need to make sure that I either rebuilt my Royal Guard so that he has the requirements for Dark Fae, Fire Knight 25, and Hydra. I would need to make sure that my Painkeeper is built for Iron Twins 15, and I would need to make sure that my Husk is built for Hydra. So essentially, I have 5 different roles that these champions are being used in, and if I don't meet the requirements for those, on top of being able to use them for this Spider team, then I'm going to have to invest more resources into these champions, or into other champions that I need to build and book. So for my account specifically, it's more resource friendly if I use a team that uses 2 Void Legendaries and Kaimar. Please make sure to go watch Tyrauku's video on his specific teams, as the champions that he showcases are ones that you might have, and his video does a good job of telling you the specific requirements that you need for your team. To show you guys an example of a team that meets the requirements that I stated, this one uses 2 Royal Guards, Lydia, Renegade, and Painkeeper, and it's actually faster than my team. This team utilizes the same requirements of making sure that you have a champion go before your AoE decrease defense and weaken. It makes sure that the Royal Guards can nuke the enemies, so that way all of the Spiderlings are dead. The Spider takes its turn, and then we make sure that our champions are either fast enough or have immunity sets on, so that way they don't get slept. Painkeeper and Renegade come in, they reset the champions, and then we have Lydia go in, and Royal Guards nuke again. Another example of a team that works is one that utilizes Duchess. This team doesn't have Royal Guard or Husk fast enough, so Duchess goes in and she places the block debuffs. That way, when the Spider takes its turn, the Royal Guard and Husk don't get slept, even though they would normally if they didn't have block debuffs up. Another team that one of my clanmates used utilizes a champion like Arbiter to make sure that we meet our minimum requirements for the speed, and she gets us fast enough where our champions don't lose all of their turn meter and fall asleep. Another team that utilizes the champions that are on the account and not rebuilding or recreating teams. That's all I've got for this video. Make sure you guys subscribe so that you can understand the mechanics behind the bosses and find the teams that work best for your account. I know a lot of content creators go in and they show you specific teams that you can use, and if you don't have those champions, you might be out of luck. What I'm trying to do in this video specifically is tell you the mechanics behind the boss and the requirements that you need to meet in order to build a team based on your account. Like I said, if I didn't have Cardiel and Kymar, I'd still be able to make a team that's 100% on this boss, but I'd have to rebuild or make new champions specifically for this content. That's all I've got in this video. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.